Hi, my name is Shelby Redfield Kilgore, and I'm the filmmaker of all these foster care and adoption videos on this YouTube channel. I just want to thank you to those of you who continue to come to this channel and check out my videos. And to those of you new, thank you for clicking on this video, and I hope you will continue with me on this journey of adoption education. And without further ado, I will dive into this next episode of Adoption Education, where I will be answering the question, how to respond to "You're not my real mom." In this episode, I will be sharing my own personal experience as an adoptee, some research that I found on the internet, and also including sort of the general insight that I've learned over the years through my interviews with all the different perspectives in the adoption constellation. I will preface that I am not a therapist or an expert or a child development specialist. I think it's just helpful to kind of be aware that this could come up and how you will be able to respond depending on your child's personality, depending how old they are, and sort of where they are at in their adoption journey and how they think about their adoption. When I was 5 years old, this was a very tumultuous time for me because it was when I finally understood what adoption meant, that I had another mother that lived in Korea, and I was absolutely heartbroken and devastated, and it was a very traumatic time for me. And my parents had always used the word adopted, but I don't know if they explained it in a way that I understood that I had two moms. You know, someone who gave birth to me, and then my mom who's raising me. That didn't click until I was 5. I believe even my parents put me into therapy because of how much grief I was displaying, how much anger, and I remember, I believe I was grounded, and I really wanted to go over to my best friend's house at the time. We lived in Maryland, and my mom said no. I remember storming up the stairs. This was when we lived in Maryland, so we had like a 2-story house and a basement, and yelling, really screaming probably at the top of my lungs, my real mom would let me go. I ran into my room and slammed the door closed. What I call it is like I'm just seeing red. There's nothing anyone can say to me in that moment to calm me down. And I don't ever remember after that incident my mom coming to like have a conversation with me about it, and I don't ever remember saying it again. I don't know why I never said it again. I don't know if it was because I felt guilty or bad, or if I just was trying to get a reaction from my mom, and since I didn't get a reaction, I'm like, okay, well, I won't use that as a weapon to try and get a reaction or to get her upset or to try and hurt her because I was hurting at the time. I think in that moment, I really wanted to go to my friends, and then to me thinking it was unfair triggered the trauma of life being unfair because, you know, at the time I finally understood what adoption meant, that I had a mother that lived in Korea, that I was heartbroken that she could not come live with us. And, you know, the resentment that I really didn't acknowledge towards my adoptive parents for adopting me at the time when I was that young. So I didn't have like a place really to express that, or language to express that, except through screaming and saying things that, you know, were hurtful. So I was hurting, so I wanted other people to hurt, and, you know, put up walls and push buttons and see how far until I'm just left again, basically. You know, as a child, you probably don't even think of all of those different layers, but as an adult, you kind of reflect back and understand it. You know, before I started like researching about trying to answer this question in a broader sense other than just my personal experience, I asked my mom, like I asked her, do you remember me ever saying that again, like in anger, that you're not my real mom, or my real mom would let me do this? And she told me, no, I didn't have a conversation with you after it happened because I knew or I expected it to happen. My mom back in the 80s, prior to her adopting me, she went to different adoption conferences where adult adoptees spoke about their experiences, and this was something that they mentioned happening. And so my mom had done as much as she could, like as far as educating herself about what it would be like to raise a child that was adopted. As an adult and reflecting back, like I'm so grateful that my mom did what she could to try and learn, and already to listen to the adoptee voice, to know what they thought about their adoption experiences and what they wish their parents had done differently or what their parents had done right or well. And so I've just always been grateful that she did that. I found myself sort of wading through several articles or blogs, but they were written by adoptive mothers. And what I really wanted was adoptees. So in the several articles that I read by adoptive moms or blogs from them, when they heard it from their child, in some cases it was matter of fact. And around the same age, between 5 and 7 years old, that they were just explaining it maybe to a friend. Some said to respond in a very calm manner without showing any sort of like emotion that perhaps you were hurt by the statement. And also, in some cases, you could diffuse with humor, like saying, pinch me, I'm real. Like, I'm your real mother, and your first mother is also real. We're both real. Or they might say, do you mean whatever qualifier they say in their family growing up? You know, if your child is asking you about their real mom, you know, because she misses her and wishes she were there, like, it's so important for you to validate those emotions and those feelings, and not to make it about you by correcting your child's language, because that detracts from what your child is trying to say, and then also makes it about you and, you know, what kind of insecurities it elicits within yourself about being a mother or a parent. I think possibly, and I could be wrong, but this is just something like that I think is probably more prevalent within the community of adoptive parents that dealt with infertility issues and never really grieved that loss prior to adopting. But I do feel like some couples that grief is unresolved and they still adopt to sort of fill this hole inside of their hearts, that there's this insecurity of not being a real parent, a real mother, a real father. And so when that child says it in anger, or even just as a matter of fact, to them personally, it's like a knife in the heart. And it's really hard for them to compose themselves in a way that doesn't show that they were hurt by this. And so it's just really important to step back as a parent and how you feel, so that it doesn't detract from what's going on with your child, and underneath what your child is saying, underneath the behavior. I would say that over the years, through the different interviews, like some adoptees have said that you're not my real mom, like in anger or as a matter of fact. Some adoptees have not said it because they feel so loyal to their parents and they would never want to hurt their parents' feelings. So they just never thought to say something like that. And I feel like the adoptees that say, you're not my real mom, or my real mom would let me do this, and they say it in anger, it's because they don't have a way to express how upset they are in that moment. They don't know how to say that they're frustrated, that they feel like nothing is in their control, that life is unfair. They don't have those words or that language when they're like 5 or 7 years old. Looking back, I'm really glad that my mom didn't circle back with me and have a conversation and let me figure out how I wanted to express myself later on, or decide not to say it again, because I'm a very sensitive person, and I feel like if she had come back and told me how she felt, that if her feelings were hurt, or this is how I should say it because she is my real mom, I would have probably looked at that as a sign that I couldn't talk to her about that kind of stuff. The important thing for moms and dads is to realize it's not about you, and it's really important not to take things personally, so that when something like this is said, whether it's matter of fact or in anger, that you take a deep breath and make sure not to respond in anger as well, or with emotion, or showing that you're hurt by what this child said. Because what's happening is, if it's matter of fact, this child is just trying to explain using the language that is available to them. Because if they're young, between 5 and 7, they're going from concrete thinking to abstract thinking, which is just much more complex, and trying to understand like these big concepts in life. It's not to purposely or intentionally be hurtful, because this is what makes sense to them. I've come to the conclusion that, when an adoptee says it in anger, your best course of action is just to let it go, and like not actually circle back and talk about it. Like, unless of course the adoptee continues to use that. Because I feel like if they continue to use that, I think it's because they see a reaction that you're hurt, and they just want to keep pushing your buttons, because they want to keep pushing that wall to see when they're just going to be left again, or to see how far they can push. And that may not be the case for all adoptees, of course, like I'm not saying that, but I do think if you want to have a conversation about it, if they're older than like 5 or 6 or 7 years old, like maybe in their teens, I think it's so important to let adoptees know that what they're feeling, if they're angry about being adopted, if they're angry and heartbroken about the fact that they're not living with their biological family, that's okay. Like, just tell them that, you understand, you hear it, and you are there for them. Just validate them and their experience and what they're feeling. It's so important. And when a child says, "You're not my real mom," in a matter-of-fact manner, I still caution against correcting your child's language in the moment, because I feel like it's an important moment where your child is just trying to talk to you or to another child or someone, their understanding of adoption at that time in their life, whether it's talking to you about how they miss their real mom. It's like when you interrupt with trying to fix what they're saying or correct it, it takes it away from what they're trying to convey. And you could lose that moment to validate them. It's when you correct and invalidate what they're saying that it makes them feel insecure, possibly feel shame. It may make it so that that child doesn't feel comfortable talking to you about it or around you about it. And then they may start to internalize those sorts of feelings when they come up and not share that with you. When your child says, "You're not my real mom," whether it's in anger or just as a matter-of-fact statement, I really want you to look, as an adoptive parent, Like, how does that make you feel? If you feel hurt by it, if it brings up insecurities within you about being less than as a mother, I really would caution against you responding to your child in that moment. I feel like it's really important to look at your intention and the motivation behind correcting your child's language, behind letting your child know that this hurts you, because it will show up in your face, in your body language, without you probably even realizing it. And your child will pick up on that. And kids, some kids don't want to hurt their parents' feelings. Like, at that age, they could already be people pleasers, or scared of rejection or being abandoned again. And so seeing that hurt can cause them to shut down, to internalize things. And that's the exact thing you don't want to happen, because you want to continue this open, safe conversations with your child, especially about their adoption when they surface. And so it's really important to, prepare yourself for something like this coming up with your adopted child or, kid in your care, so that you're prepared. You're protecting your child and you're prioritizing your child's feelings over your own as a parent. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video, and I hope that you will like, subscribe, comment, and share with your friends, family, and community. You never know who this might help. And I hope that you will consider buying the book Rooted in Adoption, a collection of adoptee reflections, a book that I helped put together with another adoptee, as well as check out Rooted in Adoption merchandise on Etsy and Redbubble. A card should be popping up with some more information, and I've included the links down below in the video description as well. It's a great way to support my work and other adoptees' work, as we use any of the funds generated from these purchases, from the ads playing on my videos, on this video, to help us continue to create content about adoption, education, and awareness. Next week on Adoption Education, I will be answering the question, what is open adoption?